Hi, everybody. This is Mr. Brooks, and we're coming on the last 2 weeks of class. And this is the project that we do every year at the end of Algebra 1, and I'm hoping that it works for virtual teaching. This is the regression project. Um, and this comes about by looking at a lot of different charts. And one of the basic charts is a scatter plot. So you can see here, this is examining the median SAT scores of US high schools and something called an adversity score, which is measuring how much difficult circumstance a kid has. And so the idea is that you can measure a comparison between how well a kid does academically because you have a SAT score, and you can measure what that kid is going through some way quantitatively because you assign a weight to things like parental divorce or homelessness or food insecurity, how many times they change schools, something like that. And so if you have two quantitative data points, you can mark it on an XY axis, and then you can tell by looking at the data what is going on. And I'm going to come back to this a little bit later on, but maybe here's something a little bit more simple. This is comparing my sleep and the number of hours to my grumpiness. This is not me, but I'm sure I follow along with this, and that's to say that the as sleep increases, your grumpiness goes down. And it's measuring the relationship between two things. It's measuring the relationship between sleep and grumpiness, just like the last one was measuring the relationship between SAT scores and adversity. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to pick two things we can measure quantitatively, and we're going to compare them. And first, we're going to make a hypothesis. That's to say, like, okay, so we know we want to measure sleep and grumpiness. But we're going to make a hypothesis, like, what do we think happens with grumpiness as sleep goes up? Or you can say, I think that grumpiness goes down as sleep goes up, or I think grumpiness goes up as sleep goes up. You get to pick. So here's the learning targets, and I'm still formulating these. Obviously, this is going to cover a lot of really good stuff. But we're measuring the relationship between two variables or two different things that can change. And we're trying to figure out, how do we measure it? What does it look like when we measure it? And how do we describe the data? Okay. Um, what are we going to do? We're going to pick a research topic. We're going to pick something that we want to measure. We're going to collect data on it ourselves. We're going to um, write down the data or tabulate the data and then graph our data. And then we're going to make a line of best fit. And then from that, we're going to talk about outliers. We're going to talk about interpolating questions and extrapolating questions. We're going to write a report on it, and then we're going to present through a video. And you guys are going to present through either screencast or Zoom. So this is a lot. We have 10 days of school, and you guys have a lot of stuff to do with this. If you get done in 5 days, you get done in 5 days. If you get done in 10 days, you get done in 10 days. The idea for me personally is to get done in about 8 days and then have the last 2 days to look at everybody else's projects. If you want to turn this in day 4, that is fine. Okay. So I'm just going through this presentation with you one by one, and you need to go through it and look at it and make sure you read it and understand what all is in here, because there is a lot in here. Okay. So here's a table of contents. So if you click on any of these, it'll take you to that section of the presentation. Okay. So come here if you're going back through it, but the first time I want you to go all the way through it slide by slide. And then this is really important. This is the resource page. This has the project worksheet of the paper. So you need to turn that in and do that. You can do that either on the paper by pen, or you can write it down on your own Google Doc and turn it in. There's a help page for writing a report because you need to turn in a report. And then there is an example of a report. You need to watch this. This is a little thing I did on how to make a great presentation. And it's going to talk about how to, do your presentation. It has links in there about how to use Screencastify. Big two I want to talk about is the rubric for the project. So I already have the rubric open. So you guys have to, pick your topic and clear your topic with me. I'm going to go through how to turn that in. That's the first thing you're going to do is pick a topic and turn in your hypothesis, and then that's going to be approved or not. And that'll be approved through email, so you need to start checking your email every day if you're not already. You're going to collect the data, and you have to have a minimum of 30, so you have to have enough data points. The more you have, the better. And then you're going to graph your data, so you're going to make a graph. And you guys did this in the climate task where you used Google Sheets to graph. You can do it by hand. I'm going to let you do it by hand, but I strongly and highly recommend doing Google Sheets. And I'm going to share a video with you about how to do that. You're going to type the report, and it's going to have to be typed. You're going to have to answer the questions. You're going to talk about the hypothesis, correlation identified. It's pretty much what's on that worksheet paper you're going to do. The worksheet, actually, let me take that back. The worksheet is there for you to write down everything what you're going to turn in as a report. So you get the worksheet, that's right here. You get this worksheet, and that helps you know what to write down, and then you're going to put all those answers into the report you're going to turn in. So the report's worth 80 points. Obviously, if you don't do these steps correctly first, then the report is going to be garbage. And so you need to make sure you get approval for your data. You need to make sure you collect your data and then graph your data. And then, the report is just typing up what you find. And as you can see when you look at the example, it does not have to be very long. You guys are going to make a presentation that's going to be Google Slides, and then you're going to give the presentation in Screencastify, and then turn it into me. And I'm going to go over that a little bit later in the project. Okay. All right. So that's the rubric. Take one step at a time. I have a day-by-day suggestion here, and this is incomplete, so this will change. Hopefully by Tuesday, this will be fully done with more links and everything. But day one, I want you to review your project documents and rubric, pick a topic and submit the topic. And then day two is start checking your email, create a Google form and ask the questions. And I'm going to make a link to show you about that. And then start researching how to do your presentation, Screencastify, and start working on your slides on day three. You don't need your data to start working on your slides, because you can retype your hypothesis and make that slide explain your two variables before you get any of the data. And then day four, start working on the report. And I think that hopefully by day 5, you should have the ability to do everything, and then be able to turn it in and even make your presentation that Friday if you want. Okay. So again, this is kind of a work in progress right now. I'm still trying to get everything together really nicely organized for you guys. So this makes sense. Okay. All right. So step one, you got to decide what 2 things you want to measure. Think about it, and you're going to have to talk about with me, like, hey, is this a good idea or not? Perhaps, but don't just think of the first 2 things that come to mind. You need to think like, will it work? Because ultimately you have to get data that you can graph. Okay. So then you're going to write a hypothesis. Let's say you want to study the relationship between frequency of exercise and feelings of anxiety or stress. Okay, so the hypothesis might be the more people dedicate to exercise, the less they will feel overwhelmed by stress and anxiety. That's explaining the relationship. It's a guess. It doesn't have to be right. If your hypothesis is wrong, it doesn't mean anything, or it doesn't mean anything bad about you. You found something out, and that's the point. So your 2 things you decide on. Hey, I want to look at the relationship between exercise and stress. That's good. So your hypothesis has to be explaining the way those two things interact. Okay. So the two questions might be, on average, how many hours of dedicated exercise do you get a week? And then you're going to ask the second question, on average, how many times a week do you feel overwhelmed by stress? Or you can ask something else. You can say, uh, what's your average stress level every day? Or what is your high stress level every day? Um, you can word that a number of different ways and get that result. But you want to explain it probably better than I did there in the hypothesis if you can. Okay. So right here, this is where you're going to turn in your hypothesis. This is going to take you to a Google form. Fill that out, and then tell me what you want to measure, and tell me the wording of your questions. I'm going to help you formulate the wording of your questions because it is very difficult to ask two questions. Not two questions. It's very difficult to ask questions in a survey. You are only asking two, so it's not a lot of work, but wording questions so that everybody understands them and so they're clear and so they mean something very specific can sometimes be challenging. Okay. So this slide, you turn it in right here. As a matter of fact, it looks like this. You put your name, tell me your hypothesis, tell me your first question, tell me your second question, and then hit submit. And if you don't, and then after that, you need to check your email because I'll say yes or I'll say no. Okay. There's a number of different things you can do. Here's some suggestions right here. I'm not going to read them. But the big thing is they have to be quantitative. So you might remember a teacher talking about the difference between quantitative, meaning there's numbered, and qualitative. So I might describe something as, maybe I'm describing a product and I'll say, this product is very good for reliability. And that is a qualitative measurement, very good. It's telling you what it is, but it's not number. If I told you that this product has 93%, 93% of this product is reliable or doesn't break, that is quantitative. It's a number. In order for you to plot this on a graph as a scatter plot, you need to have numbers. So it has to be quantitative, okay? A note about collecting data you might want to look at on average, like some things you can just say, hey, how much is this? But um, you need to be specific. So one way to be specific is to say on average, how many times a week do you eat pizza? Well, this week I ate pizza four times because we had leftovers, but last week I only had pizza once. So what do I say? So you say, well, on average, and that way it gives people, oh, okay, so normally I eat pizza twice a week. Sometimes we forget to order pizza. Um, when you collect data, you don't want to have zero, so don't ask questions where a lot of people are gonna tell you zero, because if everybody tells you zero, not everybody, but like, how many pets do you have? Like, it sounds good and it might work, but you might end up getting like 5 or 6 people responding, I have no pets. And then you have a lot of dots that overlap. And so it makes it hard to graph that data. You might need a screener question, because if you're going to ask about something like, um, how often do you walk your dog? You don't want to ask people that don't walk their dog, right? So you might say, do you have a dog? And if the person says yes, you ask them the two questions. And if they say no, then you don't ask them, you move on to somebody else. And then think about your target audience. For this assignment, you guys can either ask students or you can ask adults. So, and you get to ask. So you can either go around to students and ask, or you can give your survey to me and I'll distribute it to students or adults. I've got a couple different methods I'm going to use to do that. Keep in mind that you need 1 or 2 days for people to send the results back in. You might even need 3 days for people to send the results back in. So the quicker you get your topic picked and the quicker you get your Google form made out, the better it is, because you need time for people to be able to respond to your survey. More about collecting data. You will make a Google form. I'm going to show you how to do it successfully here in another video. And then there's resources like how do you create a scatter plot. Again, we're going to use Google Sheets, hopefully. If you really want to do it on paper, you can. And then over here, it just starts talking about different ways what you're going to do it, understanding correlation and causation and interpolation. You need to go through and watch these videos on day one. So each of these links to a video. You need to go ahead and watch those day one so you know what you're doing. Okay. All right. I'm gonna leave it right there, and I'll let you guys pick it up in the next video. So hopefully this gives you an understanding of what we're doing. Just a quick recap: you guys are picking a topic, two variables that you want to measure, and then you're going to do a survey asking at least 30 people on the relationship that they have between those two things. You're going to make a scatter plot graph and then draw the line of best fit. And the best way to do that is Google Sheets. Then you are going to tell me what you find in a report, and then you are going to create a Google Slides and present. And then we are done. So I know there's going to be lots of questions. Please come to the Google Zoom on Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. And please feel free to send me a text or email anytime to ask those questions, okay?